Hey guys, welcome to the shop. I'm Aaron with Aleeknives, and tonight we're going to make some tongs for knife making. Now, a lot of you know that I recently broke my first set of tongs that I ever made. Here they are right here. I made these 9 years ago, and the reason that I chose to make my own tongs was because it taught me some things about blacksmithing. Now, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't make these from scratch. What I did was I went over to Ken's Custom Iron and I bought Tong Blanks. They do a lot of the work for you by making these blanks, and they're very inexpensive. This set of blanks right here, I just went over and checked again. This is $10.50 for these normal tongs. Let me show you how you could take these blanks right here and turn them into nice functional tongs with longer reins, and why I think it's a good idea for you to make your own rather than spend $50 plus shipping on a set of tongs from like the Blacksmith Depot or something. You can always go that route if you think that your time is more valuable than the experience of making these, then go that route. But if you're like me and you want to save a little bit of money and learn along the way, these tong blanks are really cool. So let me bring you in here and talk to you about the blanks and what I'm going to do to make these awesome tongs. This is a pretty easy setup to do on this, guys. There's a couple things I'm going to teach you during the forging process, but realistically, to make these tongs, you're looking at drilling a hole, forging out the reins, bending the tong ears over, putting a rivet through, and beating the rivet end over so you peen over the rivet and adjusting them to where you get them to where you want them to work. You'll find that with tongs, you're really going to want a different set of tongs for different things. Like these guys right here are needle tongs. These would be really good to forge out to really thin tips, to pick up smaller things and more precise things. And these guys right here, let me grab these tongs over here. I'll show you what I did with those. I made those tongs also. And here's those tongs right here. And what I did is I took the lips and I split them open and spread them out. And these are good for grabbing, square objects or bar stock and things like that. Those are a really good tong to use. And I have another set of tongs that I made. The other set of tongs that I made here from Ken's Custom Iron also are these specialty tongs for holding railroad spikes. Check this out. Now, how cool is that? That is one heck of a way to get a grip on a railroad spike. And when I started blacksmithing, railroad spikes were the ticket. In my mind, it was like, wow, that material's just laying on the ground. I'm going to go out and pick it up, and I get to learn for free. Yeah, that's cool, but in hindsight, I realized mild steel and stuff, which is really all this is really inexpensive. So I never really did much with railroad spikes. I did some gates and some handles and some stuff like that, but I never really made any knives. I made maybe 1 or 2 knives with railroad spikes before I realized that they don't make great knives, and then kind of just abandoned that idea altogether. But I do make guards and stuff with this material that I had from years ago. But these tongs are really cool, and these can hold lots of other things. I've used these for several other tasks in the shop, but by far, I think the standard tongs with the standard jaws are the ones, those are definitely my go-to tongs right here. So let's fire up the forge and go make them. Now, since I know a lot of you don't have tongs yet, that's why you're making tongs. This time when I make these tongs, I'm going to use pliers to hold on to my work. So you'll see me, since we're going to play this like I don't have a set of tongs, this is your first set, you'll see that I'll be able to do this with pliers. It's not easy, but you can certainly do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to forge these lips down to a slight taper because that's going to make it easier for me to hold with the pliers. So we'll go ahead and work both tongs at the exact same time. We'll stick them both in the heat. That way when we're working on one, as it cools off, we can stick it in and the other one's hot. That way we can just continue working right through making these. Now, I do want to forge the lips out into a slight taper first. That'll allow me to be able to hold on to them better with these pliers. If they're square, then the pliers don't really have a way to hold on very well, and they're going to move around a lot. If they're forged down in a taper, these pliers, they'll hold on real nice. So let's go ahead and forge the lips out first, and then we'll move on to the reins. Now when we're forging the lips out, it's pretty easy to hold on to the rein itself as long as the heat doesn't creep up the rein. So just pull it out, feel it with your glove, and if it feels like it's getting really hot, you can pour some water on it, or you can even dip it in a bucket to keep the rein cool while you're forging the lips. All right, I'm gonna let those soak for a little while and bring them up to temperature. It's always easier to move metal when it's fully up to temperature and it's glowing red hot. You know, more like a yellow hot. Not quite a forge welding temperature, but definitely make sure that you get heat all the way through to the core of your metal before you start working on it with the hammer, especially thicker metal like this, because it's not going to want to move really easily with just the hammer. That didn't take very long, so we're up to heat now. So we're going to just forge these lips out. Show you the difference. That's the difference so far. There we go. We're going to go in for another heat there. We'll forge this one out. Bring this one back out. Those are looking good. Now we're just gonna Those are looking good. I'm liking it. All right. So we're going to want to line them up, make sure that they're the same, and they're not. You can see This one right here needs to be stretched out a little bit farther. So we're going to continue to stretch that one. We're going to let this one cool off because that's as far as I want to go with this. Now make sure you don't hammer in this area right here because this is where your pivot's going to be. And you want that to stay flat. We're going to be drilling a hole and putting a rivet right there. So don't hit that yet. Don't hit that with the hammer. Definitely not. Just work on the jaw area. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take these and put them in water, cool them off. All right. I'm going to start with the very far end. We'll start forging from the back forward. That way it'll keep the heat down there and I'll be able to hold on to these with my hand for as long as possible before I have to switch over to using these to hold them with. Because it's not easy to hold stuff with a pair of pliers. I'm going to switch over to the rounding hammer. I'm going to bring you in close here so you can see what's going on. To forge these tapers, I'm going to do a lot of the brunt work up front by just smacking the corners and getting everything round. And once I get everything nice and round, I'll get an even heat and start stretching it out. There we go. So you take this, put it on an angle. Do that for a little bit. Ooh, it got hot in here. I had to open up the door. All right, so here we go. Okay, so the end of these are starting to round out pretty nice. So I'm just beating down the corners. I beat down the corners. I give it a nice little round out. Now you'll notice as I do this, the whole thing moves around and turns into spaghetti. I flip it over to the flat side of my hammer and I start straightening things out. You know, just a tap here, a tap there. You know, whichever side is bending up, I give it a tap, straighten things out, kind of round out the corners. You know, basically, it's a hand tool. So you want it to feel good in your hand. That's all that matters. So now when I start putting this in the forge, I'm going to start sticking it in the forge a little bit farther each time. To bring the heat farther up. All right. So. Hey guys, when you're using water to cool off your steel, be really careful not to grab the steel when it's wet because you'll get your glove wet. And a steam burn, you don't even realize it's happening. If your glove's wet and you grab something hot, it turns that water to steam immediately and the steam penetrates the glove and it can hit your skin and you'll be burned so bad before you can pull that glove even off. So you can use water to cool your steel, just while it's cool, don't reach over and grab it while it's still wet because you'll get your glove wet and that could create an even worse situation. All right, so now I'm going to straighten out the back end of the rein and get it exactly where I want it. I do that by rolling it and I hit the high spots just to make sure that it's nice and straight. Now I'm going to cool this side of it off. Okay, so what I've done now is I've cooled off the end of the rein because now I want to work the rein from about the halfway point up to the jaw. So now I should be able to hold on to the end of the rein, the skinniest part, and work the last 4 inches up to the jaw. It's a little hot, but it's doable. Oh yeah, I'll give you a look inside the forge there. So this is the one that still needs to be forged. You can see I need to work this area right here. That's why I'm putting the heat right on that area right there. Actually, this one's ready. Well, not quite. I want to heat this up a little more right there. So I'm going to push it forward just a little more to get that heat right where I want it. There you go. You can see that heat coming in now. All right, let me pull this out and we'll get to forging it. Remember, you're trying not to hit this area right here. You want to leave that nice and flat. Let's bring in this one here. Ooh, that one is hot, boy. Almost too hot to hold, but I can do it. Just breaking over those edges at this point. Well, I think you can imagine what's going to happen next. We're going to take our two Tong Blanks here, see how they line up, see how the offsets line up. They go like this. They overlap right over each other like that. And you can see that's going to look real nice. But we do need to put a hole right in the middle. The hole is roughly 5/16. You could punch a hole if you wanted to. You could scribe a spot for a hole, or you can just do what I'm going to do and eyeball it, wing it, try to get it right in the middle. That looks really good. Check that out. Perfect. Okay, that's how you lose your, that's exactly how you lose your rivet. Did you see it go? It just shot out of there. So here's where we're at. We've drawn out our reins. They're nice and long, sturdy and straight. One's a little bit longer than the other one. That's perfectly fine. Doesn't matter. They're pretty straight this way. Straight enough that way. Good enough for tongs, right? Okay, here's where we're at. So these are going to overlay on each other. And you're going to want to play with this to see which way they lay better, whether it's this way or the other. But that's looking pretty good to me. Now there's some fitment that we're going to have to do here. These aren't done yet. Look, that's not going to grab anything, okay? You've still got to rotate these so that they work. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out which way that they lay together the best, which I think what you really want is you don't want the handles to come in. You want them to slightly curve out from each other. So let's switch these around. Switch these around to like there. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to go heat these up again, and we're going to take this jaw and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Just fold it over, and then we'll rotate this jaw the opposite so that they actually clamp. So let's go hit those. You have to drill this hole first, or else it doesn't lay flat on the drill press table. So forge these out, forge your lips out, drill the hole, and then reheat it. You need to get this part right here super hot. If you don't get this hot enough and you twist this, this whole thing can just rip off. So get this whole area super hot, and then you can rotate this and dial it in and get exactly where you want. Just when you rotate these, make sure that you rotate it opposite of each other so that they line up. Don't rotate them both the same direction. I'll show you. Where are my pliers? I've lost my pliers. Well, I really got to have those pliers. Here, I'll use these pliers. Same difference, just not yellow. I don't know where the yellow ones went. I'll show you a close-up here in a second. You want to make sure, what you want to make sure of is that you clamp this portion and twist that You don't want to clamp the jaw and twist this because you might mess up this flat spot where the pivot needs to happen. All right, let's do this. Let's grab this guy. We need that, that's our pivot pin. Come over here and show you how we're gonna do this. So we pull these guys out. You see how we're gonna line them up? We're gonna line them up like that. So we're gonna take our pin, we're gonna put it in there. Now in order to peen the pin over, I'm switching to a ball peen hammer here, and I'm going to use the ball end. I did remove just a little tiny bit of material off that pin. See how much material I've removed? So, just gonna So you just flatten that pin out first, and then you take your ball peen hammer and you dome it over by hitting the edges down. Okay, I'm liking that. All right, so once you've got this pin in place, then you can true the jaws up. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just smacking the jaws at the same time so that I can true up the sides. But now we need to do something else. Do you see how these reins are close together? What we need to do is the next step, and I'm going to show you what to do. Heat it back up, concentrating the heat in this area right here. All right, so for the next step, take anything that you can find in your shop that's round, like this. You open these jaws up, and you put that piece of round stock in there, and then you close the jaws down. Tap it from both sides so the jaws are even. And then flatten the tip of the jaw down like that. All right, now you'll see what that did is that created this gap right here, and your tongs now have a pinching place, which is really cool. So everything's good there. You can see it's nice and free. If they're a little loose, all you do is just beat on this for a second. Takes up a little bit more of the space. Now you find it's really tight. It's real tight. And then you loosen them back up. There you go. They're done. All right? Now that those are in place, I'm liking that. Awesome. Now I'm going to cool them off, and I'm going to take a file and clean them up, and these bad boys are done, and I'll show you some close-ups. One more solid tip for you. After you're done while they're hot, I use paste wax or any type of beeswax for that matter. Especially on tongs that have a pivot, because you're going to be dipping them in water a lot. So it's a good idea to take a nice wax like that, yeah, and just put it on there. It'll actually suck the wax right into the pivot there. And just like that, a brand new set of tongs is born. Check those guys out. Pretty cool. Work flawless. Actually, look, they work amazingly well. You know, stuff like this really gives you a lot of pleasure. when you're doing stuff in the shop. Look at the holding power there. That's amazing holding power. I'll show you. Let me turn this around and talk to you. All right, guys. So really, though, projects like this make you feel really good. You know, it's a fun project. You learn stuff. You get to make something, you know, with your hands. You get to beat metal, and that's a fun first project with the forge. If you're just getting into knife making, I'd say that this is at the very top of the list of things to do, is make a set of tongs. And if you don't think you can make a set all the way from scratch, there's very few steps involved with making a nice set of tongs when you buy these Tong Blanks. These work out really nice. If you think about it, if you're going to go and buy some mild steel to make tongs, you're going to spend 10 bucks. You might as well buy the blanks. And I was talking about holding power. Look at that. I mean, these things, I heat treat swords with these. I literally, in all my videos, you guys see me with huge swords in my quench tank. And I use this exact pair of tongs. These feel really good. I definitely rounded these reins out better on this set than the first set that I made. But hey, I've been beating stuff out of the forge for 8 years now since I made that set. So I would expect that this set would be nicer. I do want to reiterate that there's a certain process to this. You want to first do your jaws, then you want to taper out your reins, making sure that you don't hit your flat spot because that's your pivot. After you've got these tapered and the jaws done, drill your pivot hole. Then you heat this area right here and rotate your feed lips, or your lips up here. You rotate your lips. After you rotate your lips, you put the pin through and peen it over. Once it's peened over and you have a free moving jaw, you close it and you lay it flat and you true up both of the jaws to each other so that they're nice and true, just like that. You want those jaws to be nice and true. That way, whenever you're reaching in and grabbing something, you can pinpoint grab it. That's exactly what you're looking for. Set of tongs. Pretty easy peasy. If you guys like this video and you want to see me make a couple of these other sets, leave me a comment. Maybe I'll make some more videos for you. Because these definitely take different steps to make these other tongs. These were the steps to make this tong, and the only thing that's the same in this version and all the rest of them is the tapering of the reins. Creating the jaws different on every single set of tongs that you buy. So if you guys are interested in seeing how I make these other sets of tongs, just leave me a comment below the video. Thanks guys, hope to see you next time.